Hello everyone, this is the first of 4 games set in the Old West that I'm going to play, and for each game I'm going to use a different set of rules and then compare them all at the end of the 4 games. So I'm starting off with a Warhammer Historicals rule set called Legends of the Old West. Now this rule set is no longer supported. It is possible to still obtain the rules on eBay, but unfortunately they have rocketed in price because of their lack of availability nowadays. Nevertheless, a really good set of rules, I think. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about the setup of the rules themselves and then the scenario. And what I'm going to try and do is for each of the 3 other rule sets that I'm going to be playing, I'm going to try and reproduce this same scenario as closely as I can within the constraints of the rule set that I'll be using. But in the meantime, first thing you have to do with Legends of the Old West is to compose a posse, and that's fairly straightforward system. Basically it's a points based system. Points are dollars, referred to as dollars, so you have $200 to spend on your posse to begin with. There are essentially 3 factions: lawmen, outlaws and cowboys. That's in the original rule set. There are other factions in some of the supplements, which I won't go into here. So I'm playing lawmen against outlaws, and I've got 7 figures on each side. Basically, you're allowed up to 3 heroes, and then the rest of the posse have to be henchmen. And while the heroes and henchmen share similar characteristics, they might be of different values, but they are the same characteristics. The heroes have some additional characteristics called fame and fortune. So for the outlaws, I've spent $184, and for the lawman I spent 182, and obviously you have to pay for weapons and so on as well. So the more weaponry they have, the more you pay for that. So each has got 7 figures, very close in terms of points values, but slightly different composition of the 2 sides. On the lawman's side I've got a sheriff and 2 deputies and 4 vigilantes, whereas for the outlaws I've got a desperado who's a leader, 5 toughs who are all henchmen, and I've also added in a character which is a gunslinger, and again I'll explain a little bit more about these as we play the game. But the gunslinger is kind of like a hero. He also has fame and fortune characteristics, but you pay for him, and then to retain him for a second game you have to pay a retainer fee, which is why it's wise to keep aside, not to spend your full $200, because you will earn money and income and so on, and gain skills and experience from game to game. It's very much a kind of progressive game where you play campaigns and your characters gain experience from one scenario to the next. So obviously for a first game none of the figures are going to have additional skills or have gained any experience other than what they're given at the beginning of the game. But Legends of the Old West is very much encourages you to have a sort of narrative progression from game to game, where the characters, if they survive, gain in terms of skills and so on. This scenario is called Bank Robbery. It's played on a 4-foot-by-4 table. I'll give you a bit of a view of that in a moment. But the way it starts off is that the defenders, who are the outlaws, have just robbed the bank that you're looking at the top of the screen there, and you have to deploy. The attacker first of all deploys one half of his force within 6 inches of one table edge, so you can see some of the lawmen down here. Then the defender deploys all of his figures either in the bank or within 3 inches of it, and the bank is in the centre of the table, and they have to then nominate a side from which they are going to escape from, and the object of the game is 3 of the figures have loot counters, which is the proceeds of the bank robbery, and they have to get them off of the nominated side, and then the attacker deploys the other half of his posse within 6 inches of any other table edge. And you also you're supposed to have 12 innocent bystanders, but I've only got 10 suitable figures, so I've limited myself to 10 suitable figures, and each side positions 5 of those figures, and they have a role to play in the game, in that they can be moved. Most of the time they're stationary, but they can be moved, and they're essentially movable cover that can get in the way of the shooting and sustain injuries and so on. And the defender has to carry the 3 bags of loot off of his nominated board edge, and once he's got them off the table, the game ends, or it also ends when one posse's either failed its kind of morale test or it's been wiped out. And that's essentially the setup of the game. The lawman's posse, you can see some of them down the bottom there. So there are 4 that are just approaching the bank from one side of the table, and the bank has a back door, and all but one of the outlaws are inside the bank. The gunslinger is using one of the innocent bystanders as a kind of cover, and he is outside the front door, and everyone else is inside the building. Every other outlaw is inside the building. 2 of them are on the upper floor, armed with rifles, one facing out to the front, one facing out to the rear. The rest of the outlaws are gathered just inside the back door, and the intention of the outlaws is to escape out the back door with the loot and get across to the side of the table facing them there and escape. But the other 3 lawmen, the sheriff and his 2 deputies, are positioned in cover behind or just within the door of various buildings on that side, to try and intercept the outlaws. Now, just to give you an idea of how the kind of stats work, I'll give you an example of the Gunslinger. I've used a random name generator to supply all the models with names, and I'll try and stick with that for the other 4 games that I'm going to play. But the Gunslinger goes by the name of Emmett Nevitt, and he is armed with 2 6-guns. He has 2 skills which are fast draw and life is cheap. Now in fact all the outlaws have the skill, if you can call it that, of life is cheap, which means that they're not concerned with hitting friendly targets, which includes the innocent bystanders. The lawmen, on the other hand, are reluctant to shoot if there's a possibility of hitting a friendly target. So I'm going to include the innocent bystanders in that. So the outlaws are going to be using the innocent bystanders as kind of hostages and human shields, as it were, to try and help them get off the table. And the stats that the Gunslinger has, you can see now, I'm going to put a table up in front on the screen so you'll be able to see that there. They have 7 basic stats, all the figures, heroes or henchmen have these. Shooting, which is the dice roll that they have to score equal to or above in order to get a hit. So the Gunslinger has got a shooting skill of 3+. Fighting, which is 3. Strength, which is 3. Grit, which for Emmett Nevitt is 4. He has 1 attack. He has 2 wounds, which effectively means he can take 2 wounds before he's killed. And he has a pluck value of 4. And because he's a hero type character, he also has a fame value of 2 and a fortune value of 2. Fame allows him to play one of those points to adjust the dice roll, and the fortune allows him to survive wounds, basically, to negate the effect of hits. So by playing the fortune, he can survive what would otherwise have been wounds, so he can sort of survive for longer in the game. And he can also play it if he falls from a height or sustains injury from accidental wounding, such as falling from the rooftop or something like that. And I think that is everything. I think we're ready to go. Most of it will become apparent as I get on with the game. So I'll just give you a little bit of a flyby of the table before we actually start to play. Okay, so there's one of the hostages, as it were, in front of the Gunslinger Emmett, just by the front door. There's another innocent bystander there who's been instructed by the outlaws just to stroll up and down outside the bank and make it look as though everything is normal. There are some other innocent bystanders over here who represent drinkers in the local saloon who have come out to see what's the commotion is all about. Just over here there are the 4 vigilantes. This side of the table I've kept relatively free of buildings, other than a little bit of fence cover and so on, just to make it a little bit easier to take shots of what's going on. Around the back of the bank you can see the other innocent bystander who's been positioned by the front door, and inside the bank there are 4 of the outlaws, the desperado and 3 of his toughs, all waiting to burst out and make a run for this side of the table. And one of the deputies is waiting, just hiding behind the edge of the door there, armed with a shotgun. And the sheriff, which is this character here, and another deputy are waiting behind the dentist and attorney at law building to try and prevent the bank robbers from escaping. And I think that is everything else. That is everything. As I say, the bank is in the dead centre of the table. It's unlikely that some of these buildings are going to feature in the game, because the most of the play is going to be from here that way and across to the back of the table there. First turn then, and each turn is broken into sections. First thing you have to do is determine who has the drop, what's known as the drop, which is effectively which player has the initiative. In this scenario, in the first turn, the outlaws, the bank robbers, have the drop, and then for this particular, now we come on to the movement phase, and at the start, the player with the drop moves all his figures first of all, but before he moves his own figures, the player with the drop is allowed to move 3 of the innocent bystanders. So the bank robbers are there's a gun pointing at the back of this innocent bystander's head through the window of the door. So they are going to require him to move 3 inches that way. Now, normal movement is 6 inches, up to 6 inches, but in order to open a door, takes up half your move. So in their turn, they're going to the first bank robber is going to open the door and then move 3 inches so that he is behind that figure. And on this side of the bank, the other 2 innocent bystanders that we're going to move are this guy here, who is going to move forward the full 6 inches, and the woman is hysterical now, so she is going to move in the way of the gunshots. Let's put her about there, say. And now it's the turn of the outlaws themselves to move. So some weapons you can't move and fire in the same turn, but the gunslinger's equipped with 6 guns and he's allowed to move and fire. So he is going to move 6 inches as well, so that he remains behind that figure there. Okay, now the 2 bank robbers on the first floor of the bank are both armed with rifles, so I'm not going to move them because they can't move and fire in the same turn, so they are going to be firing out of their respective windows. So there's one chap here, they're both going to remain stationary. However, on the next floor down, the 4 remaining outlaws are going to try and make a run for it with the loot. So as I say, 3 inches or half the movement allowance to open the door, and then the first character is the desperado leader, who isn't carrying any loot, so he's allowed another 3-inch movement to move behind the innocent bystander there. The other 3 characters are all each is carrying a loot counter, and that slows them down to a 3-inch movement while they're carrying the loot. So each one, I'm not going to make them spend another 3 inches to open the door. We're going to assume that the door remains open. So each of those is going to just collect at the door there with a loot token each. Okay, now the attackers move. So the sheriff has a 6-inch move, so he is going to position himself so he's just on the corner of that building. And the nice thing about these rules is that even thin posts and things do act as a certain amount of cover. Show you how that rule operates when we come to it. Okay, and the other deputy, or one of the deputies rather, is going to move along the edge of this building. So he's just behind this hitching post here, so again it does give him kind of modicum of cover, but the inside this door here, the second deputy, who is armed with a shotgun, can't move and fire. I think if I remember, the shotgun has a range of 12 inches, and you're allowed to pre-measure and everything, so he's not within range yet anyway, but I don't want him to give up his cover. And then down here, obviously the gunslinger's role is to delay the vigilantes foiling the bank robbery. So the sooner the vigilantes can get past him, the better. But they can't shoot at him at the moment for risk of hitting the innocent bystander. So the guy armed with a rifle can't move and fire, so he's going to stay there and exchange fire with the outlaw in the window there. But the other three are going to have to try and spread out a little bit. They're all armed with 6 guns, so that they can get sort of shot on the gunslinger. Now we're on to the shooting phase then, and nothing. The 6 shooters and the shotgun involving all these figures here are all out of range at the moment. The 6 guns range is 10 inches, and it's just over 10 inches to this character here. So the only thing that can fire over at the rear of the bank is the chap armed with a rifle there. Has got a range of 2 foot, so he's going to take a shot at the deputy by the livery door there, and he's not a very skilled shooter, so he needs to get 5 or above. Get that in the camera. 5 or 6 in order to get a hit. And he rolls a 5. Okay, so show you how wounding works. Right then, this is where the rules do slightly show their age. I should have said, by the way, that the author of the rules is Rick Priestley, who was working for Games Workshop at the time that these rules were published, and was responsible for a lot of the Warhammer historical rules. But even he, was using tables at the time that he wrote these. So basically, you have to look at the strength of the rifle, which is 4, against the grit of the target, and the deputy has a grit of 3. So that means I need to roll 4, 5, or 6 in order to inflict a wound. And we get a 6. Now, not only is that important because it can cause critical damage if you roll a 6, but also the deputy has got 1 fortune point, so he is now going to need to spend that fortune point in order to see if he can avoid being wounded. If he can't, he's dead, because he's only got 1 wound, as it were, to be removed. So he needs to roll 4, 5, or 6 in order to be saved from that wound, and he rolls a 2, so he doesn't survive the shot, I'm afraid. Critical damage is different from normal wounding in that you would have rolled a D3, and that would have been 1, 2, or 3 wounds, because some characters have more wounds, but the deputy is only 1. So that means that we have to put a reload token against the outlaw who's just fired his rifle, and in the next shooting phase he won't be able to shoot. He has to spend that shooting phase reloading his weapon. And we also remove the deputy from play, so a bad start. You know what I didn't do though? I didn't allow for his cover. Yeah, so let's do that first of all. I ought to do that. So basically, any kind of cover has a varying in the way factor. So he might escape, he might get away with this. So we have to sort of really give a figure for the corner of so a loose mount, an innocent bystander or other creature or playing piece always has an in the way value of 4. 4 would also be a solid wall fence, a low wall, rocks, wagon cart, door. Yeah, door. So we're going to give the door, or the door frame rather, a in the way value of 4. So if I successfully beat the object's in the way value, the shot has missed whatever was in the way and flies on towards its intended target. So 4 plus, and he does get killed. Otherwise, well, forget that I rolled for all that critical damage and everything. No, I don't. So he survives. So he hasn't had to spend his fortune, because I should have rolled for in the way before I rolled to see if I wounded. Okay, and then on this side of the bank, the outlaw with the rifle here is going to fire down, try and take out the opposing lawman with a rifle. So again, he's only got a shooting skill of 5 plus. And he misses. But it does mean he's going to have to reload his rifle before he can shoot again. Okay, now the Gunslinger is not only within 10 inches a lot of the lawmen, but he's actually just within 6 inches of these two here. So what he is going to do with a 6-shooter, he has got very kind of low to hit, so he could probably, just by firing once at one of those figures, hit them. But I'm going to demonstrate now a rule which is called fanning, where you're allowed to fan a 6-gun, and score multiple hits, possibly on figures that are within 3 inches of one another. So he's going to try and fan one of his 6 guns at these two figures here. And the way you do this is to actually roll 6 dice, representing the 6 bullets in the chambers, and any hit of a 6, any 6 hits. No, haven't scored any 6s, but I have scored a 5 there, so I'm going to use one of the how many? He's actually got 2 fame points rather, so I'm going to use one fame point to put that 5 up to a 6, meaning he has hit one of the figures. I should have said which one he was principally aiming at, so I'll say that he's aiming at the character on that you can't see, the character there. So he has scored a hit on that character there. Okay, so 6-gun has a hit of a strength of 3, and the vigilante has a grit of 3, meaning I need to roll 4, 5 or 6 in order to inflict a wound. And I rolled a 5. Now in this particular case, the target is a henchman, so he doesn't have any fortune or anything like that, and he only has 1 wound, so he is killed. Okay, so this character is dead. He comes off the table. Because he fanned one of his 2 6-guns, he will have to reload that. So in the next shooting phase, he's got the option of either reloading one of his 6-guns or firing the other one. And he's spent one of his 2 fame points now as well, so we adjust that on his roster sheet. And another thing we have to do now is immediately test this chap here's pluck, because a friendly figure has been removed as a casualty within 3 inches of him. So the way the pluck works is that the vigilantes have a pluck value of 2, and you roll 2 dice and add the pluck value to it, and you have to get 10 or above. So we've done it easily. We've got 11 plus 2 is 13. Otherwise he would have had to have tried to move towards the nearest cover. Okay, now it's over to the lawman to start shooting, and I'm going to say for the time being both of these figures can't shoot because they take a risk of hitting the innocent bystander, but the rifleman is able to shoot at the rifleman in the window because he's firing over, you know, up to another level. So he's going to take a shot at the outlaw in the window. Now he has a hit shooting ability of 4+, so he needs to get 4+ in order to get a hit. Yep. Do it in the tray. 4, yep, so he is hit. So the target is, remember this time, is behind a window, so I need to get 4, 5 or 6 in order to not to hit the window frame. And I do, I get a 6, and not only that, oh yeah, no, that's to get through past the in the way. So now we rolled to see if we wound. And looking up on the table, the rifle has a strength of 4 and the target has a grit of 4, so I need to get a roll of 4, 5 or 6 in order to wound the outlaw, and I get a 3, so he's not hit. Okay, so I put a reload token against that lawman's rifle, so he won't be able to shoot next turn. And at the rear of the building, none of the lawmen have any weapons that are within range of the 2 outlaws that are just emerging from the door there. So the next phase of the turn, that's the shooting phase over. Next phase would be a fighting phase where any hand-to-hand fighting takes place, but there isn't any to do, so that is the end of that turn. On to the next turn, and we have to establish who's got the drop or the initiative. This is just a straightforward dice roll. Highest dice wins the initiative. So we got blue for lawmen, yellow for outlaws, and it's 4-1 in favour of the outlaws again, so they retain the drop. So in the movement phase then, the player with the drop can move 3 of the innocent bystanders. So over this side I'm going to move the lady there in front of the gunslinger, and then over the back of the bank there's an innocent bystander I hadn't pointed out before, which is the doctor who's there. So here I'm going to move him there, so he's sort of nicely in the way of all the gunfire. And the other character I'm going to move towards the edge of the table. Okay, and then the outlaws get to move first of all. So the desperado, the leader of the outlaws, isn't carrying any loot, so he can move 6 inches. The other three coming out the bank are all carrying loot, so they can only move 3 inches. So I'll get them to. Final one will just be on the porch. Have to get the loot tokens and put them beside them. I'll do that off camera, it's going to be a bit fiddly. Okay, I'm not going to move either of the 2 characters on the first floor of the bank or the Gunslinger. So now it's over to the lawman to move, and they're both going to try and edge that way now so that they can draw a line on the Gunslinger without hitting him. And the rifleman is going to move as well now. He's allowed to move and reload. He's just not allowed to fire in this turn. And I'm debating what to do with the lawman over this side. As things stand, they haven't got a clear shot on any of the outlaws because of the innocent bystanders in the way. That includes the deputy with the shotgun, although he's now in range of this chap here. Can't actually risk shooting at him without hitting the friendly target. So I think I'm just going to keep them where they are for the time being, except for the sheriff himself, who is going to come out of cover and move to there. You can't actually see that on the... There we go. So he is now there. So he is now within 10 inches of those guys, so he will be able to shoot at them. Okay, so it's now the shooting phase. But what I think I'm going to do, and this may be a bit of a waste, but I'm going to, this character here, the sheriff, has 1 fame point, so I'm going to use that to perform an heroic action, which means that he's going to be able to quick draw and shoot before, he's going to be able to interrupt the drop effectively and shoot before the outlaws shoot. So as I say, it might be a bit of a waste because he's only going to be able, he's just 10 inches to that figure just coming out of the door. So he's only going to be able to take 1 single shot at that chap. But it might sort of save him being shot in turn. So here we go anyway. So he has got a to hit value of 4. And he rolls a 3. And he can't adjust that now because fortune doesn't allow you to adjust that, so he's wasted his fame. Never mind. Okay, so we're back now to the outlaw shooting. So the desperado is just within 10 inches of the deputy behind the livery stable door there, and he has a shooting value of 4 as well. He gets a 5, so we now have to get 4, 5 or 6 to beat the in the way factor of the door, and we get a 6. So now the pistol has got a strength of 3 and the deputy's grit is 3, meaning that we have to get a 4 to wound, and we only get a 1. So we miss. And then these other 3 characters here are all going to in turn shoot at the sheriff. So they all have the same to hit factor of 5. So we'll do them one at a time. First one gets a hit. Yeah, I'll do these one at a time. So it's a strength of 3 against the sheriff's grit of 4, meaning we need 5s to wound. Yeah, we get a 6, which means it's a critical hit. So the sheriff is going to spend now one of his fortune points in order to avoid that hit, so he needs 4, 5 or 6 to well, it's equal odds. I can't remember whether it's 4, 5, 6 to save it, so I'll say 4, 5 or 6 to save it. No, he's failed it, so he gets a critical hit, which is D3 wounds, so we halve this, so it's only 1 wound. But he has got 2 wounds, so he can live to fight another day. And then the second of the 3 outlaws needs a 5 to hit, and he gets a 3, so it doesn't hit. And the third 5 or 6, and he gets a 6. So again we need a 5 to wound, and we only get a 3. And inside the bank, the 2 riflemen can't fire, but they can reload their rifles. So we take off the reload tokens, and the gunslinger here has got 2 6-shooters, so one of them needs reloading, but he can still fire the other one. So he is going to take a shot at this guy here, and he has got to hit factor of 3 plus. Oh, do it in the tray. 1. Now, had that been 2, I might have spent his remaining fame, but can't do anything about that, so he has missed. Right, now it's over to the lawman to shoot. So at the back of the bank, 2 of the figures haven't got a clear line of fire on any of the outlaws, and the only one that has is the sheriff, who used his quick draw to take a shot and missed. So it's all over this side of the table now. The chap with the rifle can reload, so that can come off. And then there are 2 figures who can now shoot at the gunslinger. So they are both going to fire single shots rather than fan their weapons. And they are both 4s to hit. Okay, first one hits with a 4. So he's firing 6-shooter against a grit of 4, means he needs 5 to wound, and he doesn't do it. Then the other one misses. Okay, so that's the end of the shooting, and there's no fighting. So we're back on round to the next turn again now. So roll to see who gets the drop. Blue is going to be the lawman, and it's 2-all. That means that the drop changes hands, because if it's a draw, the player with the drop loses it to the other player. Okay, so in the movement phase, the player with the drop can move some of the 3 of the innocent bystanders. So it's not so important now, because the lawmen have got behind the gunslinger, but I am going to move one of these figures as far as I can get out of the way. But the two figures that I definitely do want to move are the two innocent bystanders over this side. So I'm going to move the doctor that way and the bank clerk that way. So now the lawmen have got clear field of view on all the bank robbers escaping the bank. Okay, so I've moved all the lawmen that I wanted to move off camera. The sheriff has ended up a little bit closer to cover here, and over here I haven't moved the rifleman because I want him to fire his weapon, but I've moved the other two vigilantes. They're sort of circling around the gunslinger now. So one is close to the door of the bank, but it occurred to me that when the outlaws move, if this one was this side as well, the outlaw could simply move this side of the other innocent bystander. So I've moved this one around here, so one of them at least is going to have a shot on the outlaw. So that means that I think I'll leave. I've got to move the outlaws now, so I'm going to leave the gunslinger where he is, and the two riflemen inside the bank where they are, so that they can fire their rifles. And the outlaws over this side of the bank, I'm just going to move them nearer to the table edge. So the desperado leader can move 6 inches, so he's going to move close to that deputy there. Might be a mistake because the shotgun is a lot more effective at close range. And then the other three can only move 3 inches each because they're carrying loot. And that's all the movement, so now it's over to shooting. And what I think I'm going to do is, because as I say, that shotgun is very dangerous at close range, I am going to spend the Desperados, he's got 2 fame points left, so he's going to spend a fame point in order to do a heroic action and use quick draw to shoot at the shotgun, the deputy holding the shotgun first of all, but the deputy doesn't have any fame, so he can't counter that. So the first thing to shoot then is going to be the desperado shooting at the deputy with the shotgun. Okay, I'm trying to work out the odds and my mental arithmetic isn't up to it, but he's got a shooting skill of 4+, which means it's 50-50 whether he hits or not. But I think what I'm going to do is get him to fan his weapon, so I'm going to roll 6 dice rather than 1 in the hope of getting 6s. Not sure which is the more likely to have an effect. Right, so I haven't got any 6s, but I have still got 1 fame left, so I'm going to have to spend that to put that up, one of those up to a 6, so he gets 1 hit. Okay, so he's behind the door slightly, so I've got to beat 4 in order to not hit the door. And I don't, I hit the door. So the deputy gets away with that. Okay, so we're on to back to the lawmen to do their firing phase, and then we go back to the outlaws to complete their firing phase. So within 6 inches, shotgun is very powerful and it is double barreled. So I'm going to fire both barrels of that shotgun at the desperado leader. It's a bit odd the way you do this. You only roll 1 dice for both barrels, and if you hit, then you get 2 attempts to wound. So I need to get 3, hang on. What's the deputy? 4 plus in order to hit. Okay, here we go. This better be worth it. 6. Yeah, so he's hit. Okay, so at less than 6 inches, the shotgun has a strength of 5, and the Desperado, whose name is Carl Talbot, by the way, I don't think I mentioned that so far, he has a grit of 4, so that means I need 4 or more to wound, and I've got 2 attempts at this because I'm firing both barrels. So I get it on the first roll, so I have wounded him. So he has 2 wounds, so he's not killed by that, but nevertheless I think what I'm going to do, he has 1 fortune point, so I think I'm going to spend that, so he's still got 2 lives. The other thing is that if you're hit by a shotgun, you're meant to be knocked to the ground, but I would interpret that as meaning that if he spends his fortune, he's not been wounded by it, so he's not knocked to the ground. That seems to make sense to me. I haven't been able to find anything in the rules to counter that, but I might be wrong. But that's the way I'm going to play it anyway. Mainly because I don't like putting figures over on their sides. So I was going to have to find some kind of token to represent him being knocked to the ground. But we'll say he's on his feet and his fortune has saved him from disaster. And I have to put a reload token against the shotgun now to reload both barrels. Okay, next up then, this deputy here is going to shoot at this tough here. So the deputy is shooting skill of 4 plus. And he gets a 6. So the pistol's got a strength of 3, the tough has got a grit of 3, that means 4 plus to wound. No, don't do it, and you get 2. And then the sheriff here is going to shoot at the tough there. Same factors again, shooting skill of 4. And we do it, and then it's pistol strength of 3, grit of 3, meaning I need 4 to wound. And then you get a 2. It's not very good shooting from the lawman. Okay, and then over this side, this vigilante hasn't got clear shot on the Gunslinger, but this one does. So he has a shooting skill of 4. And he gets a 3. And he's a henchman, so he hasn't got any fame or anything like that to boost that. So that misses. Okay, and then finally for the lawman, the chap with the rifle there is going to shoot at the outlaw with the rifle in the window there. And he has got a shooting skill of 4 as well. Yeah, it does it. It gets a 6. Got it on camera. 6. So the rifle has a strength of 4, if I remember correctly. Yeah. We've got to hit for the roll for the window first of all. So 4, 5 or 6 and it hits the window. 6 it's hit the window. I'm not sure whether it's above or below 4, but I said 4, 5 or 6 and it hits the window. So we'll stick with that. So again, no luck for the lawman, and now it's over to the outlaws to complete their fighting phase. Not fighting phase, firing phase. Okay, while we're over this side and we've got the roof off the bank, might as well show you the rifleman here. He's going to shoot at that rifleman there. So he has got a shooting skill of 5. So only 5 plus to beat. We get 5, yeah. So rifle has strength of 4. The vigilante has a grit of 3, meaning I need 4 to wound. No, 1 foul. Okay, and again, while we got the roof off the bank, we might as well have this rifleman shooting at the deputy with the shotgun in the doorway there. So again, he's got a shooting skill of 5. And we get a 6. So 4, 5 or 6 to hit the doorway. Oop, going to do it in the tray. Yep, so it hits the doorway. And then we'll go over to the Gunslinger, I think, for shooting next. I've got to put reload tokens on both of those rifles, and the one on the lawman as well. Okay, so the Gunslinger here needs to reload one of his pistols, but he's got another pistol, so he's going to take a single shot at the vigilante there, who's got the sort of bead on him. So he's got shooting skill of 3. So 3 plus to hit. One. Oh, a rule that I've been forgetting all this time. I don't know how many times this has happened. If you roll a natural 1, there's a possibility that your gun is jammed. So you roll, and if you roll a 1 again, it's jammed and needs reloading. No, he's all right. Okay, so we've still got these 3 outlaws here that can fire. So I'm going to start with this one, and he's going to fire at the sheriff. He's now behind him. He's outside of 6 inches, so he can only fire a single shot. Can't fan his weapon, and his 5's to hit. Yep, gets a 6. So the sheriff's grit is 4 and the pistol strength is 3, meaning I need 5s to wound. No. Okay, I'm going to try the same then with the next one along. So he needs 5s to hit. No. And then the third one is going to do the same. 5s to hit. Yep, and he needs 5s to wound. 6, yeah, so that is a critical wound. So now the sheriff has 1 fortune left, so he's going to spend that to try and avoid a critical wound. So he needs 4, 5 or 6 in order to avoid the wound. And he gets a 4, yeah. So he's now out of fame and fortune, but that was worth doing. Okay, so with that shooting, which is pretty ineffective all round, that's the end of that turn. As this, again, there's no melee, no fighting hand to hand, so we're on to the next turn. Next turn then, and first thing to do is just roll for the drop. Blue for lawman, yellow for outlaws. And this time the outlaws have it, so they're going to go first. So the outlaws get to move 3 of the innocent bystanders, so obviously I'm going to move some of them around to give them a bit more cover. So the female here I'm going to move to about here, And then on the other side of the bank, I think what we'll do is move the bank clerk, so he's blocking that view of the sheriff here, and the doctor can move kind of this way so that he's obscuring the view from the deputy there. Okay, so now it's the actual movement phase, and the outlaws will move first. So I think the desperado leader here is going to remain stationary. He found his 6-gun, one of his, but he has got another one. He's got a pair, so he doesn't need to reload his weapons at this stage. But the other 3 toughs here are each going to move another 3 inches to try and get a little bit closer to the edge of the table. And the gunslinger is just going to move a tiny bit to put the woman between himself and one of the vigilantes there, but they still have to move, obviously. Okay, so I'm going to move this vigilante that way, and the other one is going to move up to the door. So he's now blocking the gunslinger's route back into the bank and out the other side. So they've kind of cut the gunslinger off now. And then the deputy with the shotgun standing in the door of the livery stables has to reload his shotgun now. So there's no point really in him standing in the doorway offering himself as a target. So he's going to move back into the building a little bit to conceal himself whilst he reloads his weapon. So he's no longer in line of sight of the desperado. And the sheriff is going to be a little bit cruel and move so he's behind that bank clerk. So he's going to endanger him in that he's using him for cover. The outlaw isn't worried about killing the bank clerk, but you know, he is can be useful as cover. And I think this other deputy here is not going to move, and the outlaws in the bank didn't move, obviously, as well. So that's the end of the movement. Onto the shooting phase, and the 2 outlaws with rifles in the bank can use the shooting phase to reload their weapons. And then we'll do the shooting of the gunslinger next. So he is going to fire at the vigilante in the doorway there. Okay, so he still needs to reload one of his 6 shooters, but he's got 2 6 guns, so he's just going to fire a single shot from his second 6 gun. So he needs 3s to hit. Yeah, and he gets a 5. So the 6 gun's got a strength of 3, and the vigilante's got a grit of 3, meaning 4s to wound. Yeah, he gets a 6. Show you that. So 6 is critical damage, but it doesn't matter anyway. It's D3 wounds, but the Vigilante's only got 1 life, as it were. So another casualty on the Lawman's side. Next up then, this tough here is going to take a single shot at the deputy there. Okay, so the tough has a shooting skill of 5, and we rolled a 5, so it's a hit. So there is a hitching post in the way. It's only a sort of thin post, but it does give a little bit of cover, so it's got a factor of 3. So I have to beat 3 in order for it to hit the deputy and not the post. And I do, equal 3, so that's fine, equal or beat. So now we roll to see if we wound the deputy, and 6 gun's got strength of 3, he's got a grit of 3, meaning I need to roll 4 or above to wound him, which I do. And I also rolled a 6, which is critical damage, so this is now a good point to spend his final or his only fortune point to try and save himself from that. Okay, I've got to roll 4, 5 or 6 to avoid the wound, and I rolled a 6. Yeah, so hasn't suffered any wounds as a result of that hit, but he has no longer got any fortune. So what we'll do then is, as the desperado can no longer see the deputy in the livery station, he's going to take a shot. Is within 10 inches of that chap, and I'm going to say now that the hitching post doesn't provide any cover because he's sort of more around to the side of it. So again, roll to see if we hit first of all, and the desperado's got a shooting skill of 4, and he rolled a 2, and he's spent all his fame, I believe, but I wouldn't spend 2 points to bump that up, so he has missed. We'll have another try then with this tough here. He's going to turn and shoot at that same deputy. So he has a shooting skill of 5, and he gets a 6, so he has hit. So again, strength of 3, grit of 3 means he needs to roll 4 or above, and he only gets a 2. So deputy survives again, and the final outlaw is going to fire at the sheriff. So again, shooting skill of 5. Yep, gets 6. So this time the sheriff has got a grit of 4, so that means I need to roll 5 or 6 in order to wound him. And I failed to, a 2. So again, the lawmen have been really lucky because the sheriff has already lost one of his 2 wounds, or lives, I prefer to call it, and he's no longer got any fortune to spend, so he's survived. Oh, actually, what I should have done anyway, yeah, I will do this. The bank clerk is in the way. He was using him as cover, so I'll just roll to see if the bank clerk took that hit himself. So I've got to beat 4, 5 or 6, and I failed to. So the bank clerk actually took that shot. Now I've just got to look up the bank clerk's grit. Yeah, the bank clerk's got a grit of 3, so 4, 5 or 6 will kill him, and it's a 4. Yeah, so I'm going to play it that way because that is important in that the bank clerk is now dead and can no longer obviously be used as cover. Okay, so we'll remove the bank clerk, poor old chap, and now it's over to the lawmen to have their firing turn. So the deputy in the livery stables is just going to reload, and the deputy there is going to take a single shot at the tough there. He's got a shooting skill of 4, and he gets a 2, so he misses. And the sheriff here has 2 6-guns, so he's within 6 inches of these 2 toughs here, so he's going to aim at this chap to begin with, but fan one of his 6-guns and see if he can get hits on both of those toughs. So 6 dice, needing 6s to hit. Oh yeah, done brilliantly. 3 hits. So think what you have to do is kind of apportion them between the 2. So, or do you? Yeah, no. I think what you do is go through and see how many of them have wounded. So on the primary target to begin with, pistol's got a strength of 3, and the tough's grit is 4. So that means I need 5s to wound. Yeah, 5s to wound. So first hit, yeah, got a 6 to wound. In the case of fanning though, 6 isn't equivalent to a critical damage hit. So that's tough. I'm pretty sure he's dead. He's only got 1. Yeah. So the first target is dead, and then the second one again I need 5s to hit, and I get another one. Yeah, 5. So good shooting, Sheriff. He's killed both of those outlaws. So that is pretty significant because they were both carrying the loot. So 2 of the loot tokens are now left on the table and have to be contacted to be picked up by another figure. Okay, so I put a reload token on the sheriff's figure there, but he has still got another 6-gun that he can be firing. And then on the opposite side of the bank, still this fight going on with the Gunslinger holding out here. So the vigilante with the rifle is simply going to reload, and then this chap here is going to fire a single shot at the Gunslinger. So 4, 5 or 6 to hit. Yep, get a 5, and then the 6-shooter has a strength of 3. The Gunslinger has a grit of 4, so that means I need to get 5 or 6 to wound. And I don't, I get a 4. Okay, again, there's no fighting. I've kind of avoided, the sort of punch-ups and hand-to-hand fighting in a way because it's far more even. So it kind of negates shooting skills and things like that. So I'm not showing you how the melees work, but might be an occasion for it to happen. So things have kind of evened out now. Both sides have inflicted 2 casualties on the opposing side, and also there's 2 bags of loot just lying there waiting to be picked up now. So that's the sort of crucial element of the game. So the outlaws I've got to do something about that. The only possibility is, for the time being, is for this chap to go back and pick one of the loots up. I have to start thinking about the outlaws that holding out with their rifles in the top story of the bank there, leaving the bank and trying to pick some of the loot up as well. Okay, so time to work out who's got the drop for the next turn. So blue lawmen, yellow outlaws, and emphatically lawmen. So the lawmen get to move 3 of the innocent bystanders. So the doctor is going to be moved out of the way that way, and then on the other side of the bank we're going to move these 2 innocent bystanders out of the way this way. So the Gunslinger is a lot more exposed now. Right, so the lawmen get to move first. So the deputy has now reloaded his shotgun. He can move half a move, so 3 inches, and that will easily get him back to the door and still be allowed to fire his shotgun in the firing phase. And the deputy beside the building isn't going to move, but the sheriff will move to pick up that loot token, and that's going to slow him down to 3-inch moves from now on while he's carrying that. And then over this side, this vigilante is going to move, so he's blocking the door. The other vigilante isn't going to move because he wants to fire his rifle. So now it's up to the outlaws to move. I'm wondering whether, don't think I'm going to do it, but this would have been an occasion possibly where the Gunslinger could have moved into contact with that vigilante, but he's got far superior shooting skills, so what's the point? You know, he's better off shooting him than trying to fight him out of the way. So he is going to remain stationary. The 2 outlaws in the bank are going to remain stationary to allow them to fire their rifles. And over here, the tough that's still carrying one of the loot tokens is going to just move another 3 inches towards the table edge, whereas the desperado leader is going to move, doesn't quite make it as far as the token, but he's going to move back, see if he can pick up that other token there. Okay, now the fighting phase, firing phase. And the Gunslinger still has 1 point of fame left, so he is going to use that to perform a heroic action and sort of preempt the lawman's firing by firing first with the quick draw ability. So he is going to fire at the vigilante in the doorway first of all. So he's got a shooting skill of 3. And he only rolls a 2. And having spent the fame point to quick draw, he now can't, he hasn't got any more to bump that up to a 3. So he misses just when it was important to hit, he misses. Okay, so it's over to the lawmen then to continue with their firing turn, and the deputy is going to use both barrels of his shotgun to fire at that tough carrying the loot. So he has a shooting skill of 4 and he gets a 6, so he has 2 chances to wound. just check the the shotgun's strength at this distance is 3, and the tough has a grit of 4, and that means we need 5s to hit. So the first roll gets 2, but it's got the second barrel as well. Gets a 6, yes, and yeah, that will be critical damage. Not that it matters, because the tough has only got one life anyway. So another outlaw bites the dust. So deputy needs a reload token and another outlaw removed from the table. So they've now lost 3 figures, 1 more, and they'll have to take a pluck test, because they would have lost more than half of their force. Okay, so it's only the leader of the outlaws, the desperado, Carl Talbot, still out there at the back of the bank. So first of all, this deputy here is going to fire a single shot at him, see if he can hit, and if that fails, then the sheriff will have an attempt. Right, so the deputy has a shooting skill of 4, and he gets a 1, so that means potentially his 6 gun is jammed. So if on a roll of 1, he will need to reload it or repair it, unjam it. No, it gets a 6, so he's fine. But he misses the desperado leader, so it's down to the sheriff to see what he can do. So I think the sheriff is going to fire all 6 barrels of his remaining 6 gun. See if he can get a 6 that way. Okay, here we go then. 6 dice needing 6s, and not a single one. Unlucky. 4 5s, no, 3 5s. And he's now going to reload. He is out of ammunition at the moment. So over here, what I'm going to do is start by the vigilante in the doorway there, taking a shot at the gunslinger. I think I might do the same again and unload all 6 barrels at him, and if that fails, then the rifleman will attempt to shoot him. But if he is killed, then the rifleman still has the target of the outlaw firing from the upper floor of the bank. Okay, here we go then. 6 dice needing 6s to hit. Yeah, okay, we've got 2 hits. And the gunslinger is still quite well off in terms of points to spend and so on. He's got 2 fortunes left. So he might be able to survive these. So basically he's got a grit of 4, and the 6 gun has got strength of 3. That means I need 5s to wound, and he has got two lives as it were as well, so he needs to take 2 wounds before he's killed. So I roll the 2 dice to see if I can get any 5s. No, they both fail to wound, so he doesn't need to spend any of his fortune. So in that case, the vigilante with the rifle is going to take a shot at him, and he has a shooting skill of 4, and he gets a 2. So the gunslinger is really holding out brilliantly. Right, the outlaw's turn to shoot now. The gunslinger's already fired because he used his heroic action, but there are 2 riflemen now in the bank. So the first one here is going to fire down on the target that you can see here. So he needs 5 or 6 to hit, and he gets a 3. And then this rifleman here is going to fire down on the sheriff, again needing 5s to hit. Yep, he gets a 6. And the rifle's got a strength of 4, sheriff's got a grit of 4. That means you need 4, 5 or 6 to wound him, to kill him effectively, because he's got no fortune left to save him. No, and he gets a 1. Brilliant. So he survives that. And in desperation then, the Desperado is going to use his other 6-gun to fire all 6 barrels at the sheriff. So 6 dice needing 6s to hit. And again, nothing. And also he doesn't have any fame left to bump that 5, one of those 5s up to a 6. So he needs to reload both his weapons as well now. Okay, next turn then. I think it's fair to say that the bank robbery is not going well at this stage, but outlaws might be able to pull something out of that. So first thing to do is to roll for the drop. Blue for lawmen, yellow for outlaws, and 3-1 to the outlaws this time, so they get the drop. That means the outlaws get to move 3 of the innocent bystanders, so we'll put the doctor up there, and the other 2 over there. Well, I say the other 2, there's been a whole crowd of drinkers and bartenders and so on over there. Haven't got involved, just on looking. Right, the only movement the outlaws are going to make is for the Desperado to move onto that loot so that he can pick it up, and nothing else on that side is going to move. So this vigilante on the lawman's side is going to move to there. He can't fire this turn because he's going to have to reload his rifle, and this deputy here is going to retrieve that loot there. So now the 2 of the loot tokens are in the hands of the lawman, and only 1 in the hands of the outlaws. So in the firing turn, Desperado is going to reload 1 of his pistols, and the 2 outlaws in the bank have to reload their rifles. Okay, the Gunslinger still has a 6-shooter that he can use. 1 of them needs to be reloaded, but he still has 1 that he can use. So he's obviously going to fire at the vigilante in the doorway there. He's got shooting skill of 3, so he needs to beat 3. And he gets a 4. And strength of 3 and grit of 3 means he wounds or kills, in this case, on a 4. And he only gets a 3, so the vigilante survives. Okay, so it's over to the lawman to shoot now, and over this side the vigilantes both have to reload their weapons, so there's no firing from them over this side of the bank. And pretty much the same over the other side of the bank, that the sheriff can reload 1 of his pistols, the deputy has to reload his shotgun, but there's another deputy here with a 6-gun who can shoot, so he's over 6 inches, so he can only fire a single shot at the Desperado, but it's worth a try. Okay, he's got a shooting skill of 4+, and he misses. Okay, so that's that turn over. Then much of it spent on reloading weapons. So back to deciding who's got the drop for the next turn. Blue for lawmen, yellow for outlaws. And it's a draw, and that means because the outlaws held it last time, it goes over to the lawmen. So they are the ones that move the innocent bystanders. So I'm just going to do the same in reverse as what happened last time. Doctor's going to move back that way, and the two citizens over this side are going to move in that direction there. Okay, so the only movement the lawmen are going to make is that the deputy here can move 3 inches, and that will get him within 6 inches of that desperado, and that's, he can only move 3 inches because he's now carrying some loot, and nothing else on the lawman's side is going to move. And similarly, the only figure that's going to move on the outlaw side is the desperado, moving 3 inches, trying to get that loot off the table in that direction. Well, it seems highly likely now that Carl Talbot, the desperado, is going to get gunned down in this turn. She's now opposed by 3 lawmen. So it's the firing phase. We're going to start by firing the shotgun at him, and if that fails to kill him, he has still got two wounds, so he needs to be wounded twice. But if that fails, then we'll go on to the sheriff, and if that fails, then we'll go on to the other deputy. Okay, so the deputy with the shotgun's got a shooting skill of 4. He's going to fire both barrels, by the way, and he gets a 5. So shotgun at that distance has got a strength of 3, and Carl Talbot's grit is 4, so that means, I believe, he's wounding on a 5. Yep, so he gets 2 attempts to wound him on a 5. First one does it, yeah. So that is 1 wound off of, yeah, because there's no, he hasn't got any, has he got any fortune left? No, he's spent it all. So he's now down to 1 wound, and we can try with the sheriff now firing his 6 gun. He's going to fire all 6 barrels, so he's sort of fanning again, so he's rolling 6 dice, needing 6 to hit. Oh, and he gets 3 hits, so 3 attempts to wound. Think again, yeah, he needs 5s to hit, so I might as well roll all 5. All 3 rather. We've got 2 5s there, so poor old Carl Norbert, the outlaw leader, is dead. And then over the front of the bank here, the vigilante is also going to use, now he's reloaded his weapon, he's also going to use the fanning ability to fire 6 shots at the gunslinger. So 6 dice, needing 6s to hit. And he gets 2 hits. The gunslinger as well has 2 lives, so we now roll to see. I don't think the gunslinger's got any fortune left though. Oh yes, he has. he has 2 fortune left. So we have to see if it's wounded first of all. So he's got a grit of 4, so it's 5s to hit, to wound rather. 1 wound, and the Gunslinger is going to try and spend 1 of his fortunes, so 4, 5 or 6, he deflects that wound. No, so he's going to use the other fortune to do the same thing again, so he's now used up all his fortune, 4, 5 or 6, and he deflects the wound. And he's got 3, no, so he's wounded and used up both of his fortune. So the other vigilante will try and shoot him in the back, finish him off. So 4's to hit. Yeah, gets a 5, and the rifle has a strength of 4. The vigilante has a grit of 4. That means that I need to roll a 4 to kill him because he's got only 1 life left. And it's a 3, so he doesn't kill him. Okay, so Emmett the Gunslinger therefore is now free to fire his weapon. He's going to attempt to shoot single shot at the vigilante in the doorway, hitting therefore on 3+. Oh, it's gone off the table, let's roll another one. 5, yeah. So pistol has a strength of 3. The vigilante has a grit of 3, and that means we're hitting on 4s, or we're killing on 4s. And it's a 1, so again fails to wound. Okay, so it's up to the outlaws armed with rifles who've now got reloaded weapons. So the one in the front of the building is going to shoot down onto the rifleman there. So he has a shooting ability only of 5+. He gets a 3, so he misses. And then the chap at the rear there is going to attempt to shoot the sheriff, who is just sort of hidden by the wall of the bank there, but he's within sight of that rifleman, so again needing 5s to hit. Yeah, get a 5. So strength of 4 and a grit of 4 means 4s to wound, and again this will kill the sheriff if I get 4 or above. No, 3. So those rifles now need reloading, and that is the end of the shooting phase. And in fact that's the end of the turn. So next turn, roll to see who gets the drop. Blue lawman, yellow outlaws, and 4-1 for the outlaws, so they get to get the drop. They've lost more than half of their figures now, so they do have to test for pluck, and I think that has to happen at the beginning of their movement phase, so now, but I think first of all in this scenario they would probably move the innocent bystanders, so I'll do that first. Okay, there's no point in moving anyone on the other side of the bank because all the outlaws over there are dead. So these 2 civilians here are going to move back. They're not going to get far enough to provide any cover for the Gunslinger, but we can also move now one of these drinkers here. It's got a little bit too interested, so we move this one approaching a little bit nearer. Okay, now we have to test for pluck, and as the leader is dead, we choose the pluck value of the highest pluck value of any of the figures left on the table, and that is Emmett. The Gunslinger has a pluck of 4. So we roll 2 dice, add 4 to the total, and we have to get over 10, otherwise they head for the hills. Yeah, so that's 9 plus 4, 13, so they are going to carry on. So now it's movement phase, but I think all the outlaws are going to stay where they are for the moment. So it's over to the lawman to move, and I think that the only sort of option open really is for the third loot token to be picked up by this other deputy here, so he won't get to it in this turn. Where is he? He gets to about there. He's taking a reload token with him, and the other 2 are carrying loot already, so they're going to try and enter the bank. If they at least get up to the wall, they'll be out of sight of the rifleman in the window there. Okay, so in the firing phase, absolutely all the lawmen, with the exception of this deputy here, have to reload their weapons, so they can't do any firing at all. But this guy can if he has a viable target, and he does, because the pistol has a range of 10 inches, which will allow him to fire up at that window there, where there is an outlaw with a rifle. He can't fire back, incidentally, because he's got to reload his weapon as well. Okay, so it's outside 6 inches, so the deputy can only fire a single aimed shot, and he has got a hit value of 4+, and he only gets a 1, so if he rolls another 1, the gun is jammed. No, he's alright, but he has missed. Okay, so the only outlaw that can fire is the Gunslinger, so he's going to try and take out the vigilante blocking the door there. Okay, 3 to hit. Yeah, finally gets a hit, and 4 to wound. Yeah, gets a 5, so finally manages to shoot dead that vigilante in the door there. Okay, next turn, we'll see who gets the drop. This time it's the outlaws. So in the movement phase then, the outlaws can now move 3 innocent bystanders, so those 2 are obviously going to act as a shield for the Gunslinger, and this one is going to move a little bit nearer. And then because the outlaws are now below half strength, they have to take a pluck test before they move. So it's pluck of 4 for the Gunslinger is the highest, plus the roll on 2 dice, and you have to beat 10. 8 plus 4 is 12, yep, so no problem there. So I'm going to move the Gunslinger 6 inches, which will take him just up to the door, as we know, and the 2 outlaws in the bank are going to remain where they are so that they can shoot their weapons. So it's the lawman to move now. Now if I were to move the vigilante with the rifle, he wouldn't be able to fire the rifle, so I'm going to leave him where he is so that he can have another shot at the outlaw at the window up there. However, on the other side, I'm going to move all 3 lawmen to get them a little bit closer to door of the bank. They can only move 3 inches each because they are each one's carrying loot. Oh no, the other one isn't. It's not carrying loot yet, but he needs to move onto it in order to pick it up next turn. Firing turn then, and the Gunslinger is going to turn around. I've just measured it, and he's just within 10 inches of this last vigilante over this side, so he's going to take a shot at him. It'll go through one of these 2 innocent bystanders, but not both, as they're standing side by side. But the outlaw isn't worried about shooting through innocent civilians anyway. So 3's to hit. No, fails, and if we roll another 1, the gun is jammed as well. No, got away with that. So in that case, the outlaw at the window here is going to shoot down on the vigilante, try and hit him with his rifle. So he needs 5s to hit. Yeah, gets a 6. So it's strength of 4 against a grit of only 3, and that means need 4s to kill him. Yep, 5, so that's another vigilante dead, and that means that more than half of the lawman's posse has been eliminated as well. Okay, now the other outlaw is going to see if he can repeat the same process. Might be a little bit too steep a shot to try and hit the sheriff, so he's going to shoot at that deputy there. And again, needs 5s to hit. No, only gets a 4. So, as I say, that might be a bit too steep a shot anyway with the sheriff, so he's going to take the opportunity in the firing phase to reload his other 6-shooter. But the other 2, the deputy with the 6-gun and the deputy with the shotgun, is just in range now, so they're going to both fire at the outlaw at the window, starting with the deputy with the 6-gun. So he needs a 4 to hit, 4 or more. No, and he gets a 1, and he's saved from the gun jamming. And then the deputy is going to fire both barrels of his shotgun. Again, he needs a 4 to hit. Oop, put it in the tray, and he gets a 4. So I believe he needs to roll a 5 if I remember correctly. Oh yeah, first of all though, got to get past the protection of the window. So 4, 5 or 6, and it wounds the outlaw. No, it doesn't. Hits the window, so don't have to look up wounds. Okay, the turns are getting shorter now because there are fewer figures on the table, so it's next turn. So we have to roll to see who gets the drop. Blue for lawmen, yellow for outlaws. And it's a draw. Who had the drop last turn? It was the outlaws. That means the lawmen have the drop this turn. So they begin by moving some of the innocent bystanders. So we'll move the doctor even further away. He's the only one near any action now anyway. But off camera I'll just move 2 of the others on the other side of the bank. I'll move them towards the saloon. Okay, right now, before the lawmen have their movement phase, they are below half strength as well, so they have to roll for pluck. So they have to roll using their leader's pluck, the sheriff's pluck, because he's still on the table. He has a pluck of 4, So it's 2 dice plus 4, and we need to beat 10. 7 plus 4 is 11. They've just done it. Okay, so they're all carrying loot now, so they all move 3 inches, so the sheriff will move up to the door. I'll just do this eyeball, it won't measure it properly. Looks about right to me. And now before the outlaws move, they have to roll for pluck as well. So it's the same stats. The Gunslinger has a pluck of 4, so 2 dice plus 4, beating 10. 8 plus 4, yeah, 12, so they're okay. So on the ground floor of the bank, the Gunslinger who's just by the door outside takes 3 inches of his movement to open the door, or doors, and then he can move a further 3 inches to go inside the bank. And on the next floor up, the outlaw at the front of the building no longer has a target, so he is going to move towards the back of the building. I'm going to ignore the rule about doors, internal doors. Seems a bit harsh to make them lose 3 inches of movement for every single door. So he's moving to the top, almost to the top of the stairs there, and the other guy's going to stay close to the window there because he probably still got another shot off at the deputy. And now it's the firing turn. So let's take a look at that. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can demonstrate this through the camera, but the outlaw can definitely, you can definitely see through the clear transparency of the window on the model that the outlaw can see the deputy there. Not the one nearest the building, not the sheriff nearest the building, but certainly that one. So I'm going to allow that deputy to shoot up at him. So it's this guy here shooting up at the upper window of the bank at the outlaw. So he requires 4 to hit, and he gets a 5, and then he requires 4, 5 or 6 not to hit the window, and he only gets a 1. So once again his shot hits the window. Okay, so the sheriff hasn't got a shot, and the other deputy has to reload, so he can't fire. Okay, on the lower floor of the bank, the gunslinger here can actually see through. You can't make it out on this from this angle on the camera, but he can actually see through the tills, the window of the cashier's tills, down the corridor to the door. So he has got line of sight, but at the moment the door is closed. So he's going to take his firing turn to reload the second of his 2 6-guns. And on the upper floor of the bank, both these outlaws have to reload their rifles, so they can't fire. So again, that is the end of another turn. Okay, so we roll for the drop again. Lawman blue, outlaws yellow, and it's another draw, which means that the drop goes back to the outlaws. Okay, so as they're less relevant to the action now, I'm going to move the 3 innocent bystanders off camera and then come back to rolling for pluck. Right then, so I've moved the innocent bystanders off camera. 3 of them are heading towards the front door of the bank. They're going to go into the bank to see what's going on, what's happened. So now, before I move the outlaws, I have to roll for their pluck. So it's 4 plus the 2 dice and having to beat a score of 10. Yep, do that easily. Right, so on the ground floor of the bank then, the Gunslinger, as I say, I'm not going to bother about penalising for going through doors at this point. So he is going to make his way through two doors here. It's about 6 inches to get through that door, and then there's another door here, so he'll end up at the end of the corridor facing the door behind which is the sheriff about to enter the building. And then on the upper floor, this outlaw is going to remain at the window, but this outlaw doesn't have a shot at the moment, so he is simply going to move to the top of the stairs there, and the stairs actually look down as well on that corridor where the external door opens onto, so he will have a shot at the sheriff as well when he comes into the bank. So now the lawmen have to roll for pluck. Oh, and they haven't done it. 4 plus 4 is 8, so they have failed their pluck and they head for the hills. So the game is actually over. That's a pity, because I was looking forward to that fight inside the building, but never mind. Those are the rules. So I'll just go through, sum up. It's pretty obvious that the lawmen have won the game, as the if there's any loot on the table, it's in their possession at the end of the scenario. So they have retrieved all the stolen loot from the bank. So I'll just go through the summing up at the end now. Okay, now I'm going to talk a lot more about what I think of these rules, and I do think highly of them, in a later video when I compare all 4 sets of rules together. And incidentally, I've just noticed that Two Fat Lardies are about to bring out a cowboy skirmish game as well. So if that happens before the end of this series of 4 videos, I'll add a 5th video showing some gameplay from that as well, but it's probably not going to be out by the time I've finished these 4. So for the time being, I just want to talk a little bit about the scenario itself, because one of the key features of Legends of the Old West is it's very much the games continue from one game to another. So this was the first game of it that I played using these figures, and what you're encouraged to do is to chalk up experience and so on of the figures that are left alive, and then play with them again in future scenarios. And you can even get to the stage where some of the henchmen gain so many skills that they become heroes themselves. But I'll just read to you the description of the bank robbery scenario, so you can see what I mean about that. So winning the game, the defender must carry the bags of loot off the nominated board edge. If he gets all 3 bags off the table, the game ends. The game may also end when one posse has either failed its head for the hills test or has been wiped out. So in this case, the lawmen failed their head for the hills test. Bags of loot that remain on the table when the game ends are in the possession of the attacker. When the game ends, the side with the most bags in its possession wins. So the lawmen, even though they were the ones that scarpered, they have clearly won the game. And then in terms of experience, each fighter who survives the game gains 1 experience point. This applies even if the fighter is taken out of action, so long as he survives and lives to fight another day. So that means if he was taken out of action by leaving the table, so on the roster sheet, I didn't show you the roster sheets, but there are boxes that you tick, and as you gain in experience, you pass points where you can add skills to the character. So this whole point is to play a series of games. Leadership. The leader of the victorious posse also gains 1 experience point. Heroes gain 1 experience point for every enemy model they personally put out of action. So I should have been keeping a tally of who killed who, and that's another way that they build up their experience and therefore get to earn different skills, and there are a lot of them. Each model on the defender's posse who escapes with a bag of loot gains 1 experience point. Well, there was none of those. And then in terms of the loot, each posse gains an extra $2d6 income for every bag of loot in their possession at the end of the game. And with that income, you use that to buy weapons and buy additional items such as nitroglycerine and dynamite, even liquor, because you can liquor your characters up so they act more impetuously and so on. And in the case of the Gunslinger, you need to be able to afford to retain him, which is what I was saying at the beginning of the game about how I had put a little bit of money aside, but there wouldn't have... Oh yeah, there would just about have been enough to retain him for a second scenario, but had they carried off some of the loot from the bank, then they would easily have been able to retain a Gunslinger, or even purchase a second one, have another character in there. Yeah, actually, I'm not sure how that would work. Whether you have to keep it balanced at 200, or you can, from now on, you can basically spend what you've got, even so that your force is dwindling through the casualties you've got, but you can then buy further characters to come onto the table. Right, so that's it. End of the game. Hope you enjoyed it, and not sure which set of rules I'll play next. I'll make my mind up later about that, but there'll be a further 3 videos on the other different rule sets coming up in the not too distant future. Thanks for watching.